Hello, everyone. Hope you are having a great Monday, Tuesday, whenever you are listening to this show. Pharmaceutical Soccer here. Of course, I am with Clay Trainum. I am Stephen Robinson. Unfortunately, Valera Shabilla has decided to be in enemy territory this week and not be with us, as Valera's in St. Louis doing real life work things.
He's pursuing an independent enterprise in St. Louis.
Yes, he's pursuing an independent enterprise in St. Louis. But we wish Fuller the best, and hopefully he comes back next week. If he's not back next week, well, we've lost Fuller forever. But that's okay. We still love him. He's not going anywhere. He's just gone for work. Anyways, look, obviously, this is a weird week. Not a ton to talk about when it comes to Nashville Soccer Club, as we had a bye week over the weekend, a much needed bye week. It was fun taking a look at some of the Instagram stories of players that, took vacations, people going home, all that type of stuff. And I think it was definitely needed. So, in that kind of respect, Clay, your weekend, what was that like?
It wasn't the most fun. I did go home over the weekend, obviously still dealing with stuff back home, but fortunately was in a good spot to leave to come back to Nashville on Saturday. And in the spirit of Valaire's on air with Valaire, we went to Rose Pepper for dinner Saturday night.
Okay.
So no free shout outs, but I don't care. We go there a lot. And normally we go to a particular ice cream place across the street, but it was packed. So we decided not to go to that ice cream place and instead go to the SIP as recommended by Sean Davis. And so we're sitting there at the SIP and I'm on my phone, being the most charismatic person at a table. Uh, and my wife just starts poking my arm super heavily. And I look over to the left and it's Alex Wheel. So,
Oh,
so
fantastic.
I was like, well, yeah, so much of this team lives in East Nashville, as we all know from the neighborhood promotion. So while I didn't get to watch NSC on a Saturday night, as per usual, I did see an NSC player on a Saturday night. So there you go. So shout out, and by the way, it was good. So shout out to Sean Davis for that recommendation. I had the horchata ice cream and I quite liked it. So Sunday I made my own version of peri peri chicken on the grill at home, and I did a 5 cheese mac and cheese, which is so heavy that I'm still dealing with it today, but it was great.
Did you make your own peri peri sauce or did you use the Nando's peri
Yes.
peri sauce? Oh, you made your own.
Yeah, yeah. I did a cheaters version. I didn't like get the peppers. I combined sauces from a recipe I found on the internet. But yes, we made our own peri peri and then we marinated the chicken and did it in there. So, we were just in England, so we figured we had to see if we could try and recreate it when we got back to the States.
There you go. I also had a pretty good weekend. I didn't really do much this weekend. It was kind of just kind of doing a little bit of exploring. Spent some time in Silver Springs, Maryland, a little bit. I had plans to both go see Loudoun and DC United, and I did not go to either match. So it was definitely a soccer break for me specifically this weekend. I watched some Premier League. Yeah, I mean, it was fun to watch Arsenal bottle the title, again. So that was fun to kind of watch and, see.
Yeah, this is a very conspicuous absence from Valaire after we haven't seen peak Arsenal in a while, so that was kind of fun.
Right.
Although I maintain I saw this about 5 or 6 years ago. Someone said peak Arsenal is Diet Everton. So which might be the most true thing I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, it's a conspicuous absence from Valaire after that result.
I
The
did a
mood from like 9:30 to 12:30 was so different.
I did enjoy watching the because both MLS games were on Sunday on TV, so that was nice to be able to just pop on, Fox, and I was doing commentary with Jamie Watson for the Atlanta United and Philadelphia Union match, so that was fun to reconnect with Jamie Watson. I do need to reach out to him and be like, is it like doing commentary with Mike Watts like talking to me? I do not. I never knew what I sounded like specifically until I heard Mike Watts do commentary. I feel like me and him just need to get in a room one day and just have a conversation just to see what it's like. But no, it was a good weekend. It was weird to not have any sort of Nashville soccer going on. I think it was so good though. And we're going to talk about it a little bit. I think Clay specifically, as being the Clay person that he is, wants to bring things back into a positive note and a positive notion. And it is going to be hard to in some ways. Like after the weekend, looking at the table, we are in 14th place right now, uh, which is not last place. 15th place would be last place. We're not as bad as New England, thank God. Um, there's not a ton of positives to technically look at. We have a weekend coming up against Inter Miami where Messi has been now back in the full form, it seems like. But we want to try to be positive this week.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into it in the next segment a little bit, but like the one thing for me is Nashville's got a game. It's no coincidence that the three teams at the bottom of the Eastern Conference all have a game in hand on most of the teams ahead of them. Like we're we're still in the early season period of MLS, and let's say they get a win. If Nashville gets a win against Inter Miami, which is a decent if, they're right back into the playoff picture. So it's nothing to freak out about right now. This was just something that was predicted. There's a difference. Nashville's on 7 points, and Inter Miami is top of the league with 15 points and has played two more games than everybody else, or one or two more games than everybody else. Like we're still in the early period of the season, and I think that that's worth remembering. I mean, right before we got on air, Steven mentioned this. This was the same position that Columbus was in last year, and Columbus is playing CONCACAF Champions Cup uh, semifinals and is the defending MLS Cup champion. So a lot can change in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah,
Not that we expect that, but
agreed. Yeah, like a lot can change. Again, like I brought this up, Columbus Crew was in the same position after the same amount of games last year, 7 points and seven, ended up winning the championship. I think we're as complete as the Columbus Crew team of last year? No, I definitely think the Columbus Crew team just needed some time to get together. But you never know with this team getting, some bodies healthy, getting a few more signings, over the summer always seems to be this club's MO, and we could see what happens from that standpoint.
like I feel like it's a broken record, unfortunately, because I've had to say it a lot. It seems far more unlikely than things that have worked for several years in a row suddenly stop working than they stay stopped working.
Yeah, I did find it interesting. That is one of the so Tom Bogart released an article on The Athletic today. Just like he'll normally do Monday articles just about the league itself, like if there's any sort of highlights from the weekend, stuff going on, where he did bring up a power ranking of five coaches that were on the hot seat. I looked at that article. I read it. You had some popular names. Top of the Dallas's coach, definitely number one up there at the current moment. You had the San Jose Earthquakes coach. I already forgot. Isn't that a God? How do I not know these coaches' names?
You're in the Western Conference, it makes it harder to remember.
Ridiculous. I know Caleb Porter was on there. There was one more below, and then Gary Smith was fifth on that list. So it was interesting to see, and it's kind of the same things that we've brought up. Hey, it's weird to go from things working to just not working, but this team does have the ability to kind of bring it around. I did think that was interesting, especially after a week of not playing. But I also think it's understandable that Gary Smith is on some sort of hot seat. Um, we've talked about it. Like he's absolutely on a hot seat, but it's a hot
Yeah.
seat that he has the ability to get off if the team can play what they're used to playing.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of this is based in the way that the team ended last year. Like it is a run of form that dates back to last year that is troubling. And like I said earlier this season, at the end of last season, I don't personally agree that it's time for him to leave, but I don't think that it's an indefensible point. I think that there are completely logical reasons why you would do it, which is something that I hadn't said before the end of last year. So yeah, it kind of is what it is, but I think that it makes sense to bank on seeing some sort of reaction coming out of this bye week. If that doesn't happen against Inter Miami, okay, fine. San Jose is coming up too. And I think that if we don't see Nashville get a win, at home against San Jose, then I think we're going to see uh, quite a different mood around the place. Because if you're playing the worst team in the league at home, you got to expect a result. And I don't necessarily believe in the concepts of must wins in MLS, especially. But like, if you don't get something out of Inter Miami, that hot seat is going to be significantly hotter if you don't get a win at home against San Jose.
Yeah, I think that, and we'll talk about it. I think these next two matches are going to be extremely important for Gary Smith's tenure here for sure, whether it's getting a result against Miami or, which is going to be tough, or San Jose. But like we said, we want to stay positive today. So in this second segment, we're gonna have a little bit of fun. I believe. I think Clay and I are gonna have a good conversation, try to bring the positivity a little bit back up, and then we'll talk about some of the other MLS results around the league as well as some Huntsville news. And we'll do that next right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer.
And welcome back to Pharmaceutical Soccer. Clay Tradham, of course, with Stephen Robinson, while Valaire is pursuing all kinds of things in St. Louis, presumably trying to find a way to leave Nashville to become a St. Louis, get on the St. Louis beat, I suppose, which would be very annoying. So before we get started, I want to make sure that all of you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Pharma Soccer. Be sure to check out our Patreon. Maybe we can do things to entice Valaire to come back next week. So if he doesn't come back next week, it's because you, the listener, hasn't joined our Patreon. So make sure you do that at patreon.com/pharmasoccer. It would be much appreciated. It helps us keep things running and helps us keep Valaire at Pharmaceutical Soccer. So
This would be the normal time where Clay comes in and is just like, no, that doesn't happen this
I
time.
didn't say we were paying him. I was just saying the support is felt.
No, I was going to say that's absolutely a correct statement. Like I was going to come
Yeah.
in and just say you're absolutely correct. So
Yeah. So, uh, but yeah, we've seen a lot of negativity, understandably, over the last week. And I know it's hard when your team's idle, watching all the teams kind of go past you on a bye week. And so on the rundown this week, it literally just says nostalgia. That's the entirety of the rundown. And that sounds a little bit strange, and I understand that. But I kind of come back to this point an awful lot because it's something that's important to me, especially as someone who runs the Nashville Soccer Archive, that things have been much worse for the sport in Nashville, in this area, over the course of the last 40 years than they are right now. And I think it's important to sometimes keep that in mind, that Nashville Soccer Club exists because we created it and we built it. Now, it took a lot of help to get there. Uh, John Ingram obviously is a billionaire, and it took that and some agreements with MLS, but those don't happen without the work that we did to get the stadium across the line, the Metro Council. None of this happens without the work that folks did to build Nashville SC, a volunteer run organization of which, of the people on this show, Stephen was probably the most involved with. So I think that it's important, especially when things aren't great with the club, to remember kind of where we were
yeah,
10 years ago to where we are right now. And I'm excited that we've reached the point where that's not the first place I go to when the team's not performing well.
yeah, for
Because I
sure.
think I said on this show they could lose for 2 straight years, and I'm still going to be like pretty excited because we have a team. But now we're at the point where like wins and losses really annoy me in a way that they never did beforehand.
Right.
But like I think it's fun to just like remember, everything that's gone up to this point.
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong necessarily to have an expectation. I think everybody on this show has an expectation of what they
Right.
want. Of course, we want the team to win. Of course, we want the team to be better. And like, we're going to get frustrated and angry when we feel like, either we don't have any control of that, where we feel like, the players on the pitch are better than the outcome that we're currently getting. Like, we expect these things. but it is also a lot of fun just to kind it's like it's fun to just kind of like reminisce about the times that we did have to go through, back in to get to this point of now we're getting frustrated about our team finally, we went through 4 straight years of being in the playoffs, specifically. And then the same thing with USL too. I mean, we in the USL, there wasn't a year that we didn't make the playoffs. Now, we could have had some better results in those playoff matches, but it's something that is always it is good to reminisce and remember. Um, yeah, I don't. Was there like I'm curious. Was there like did you want to go into things that were worse
No,
than
no,
that
no, but
time, or
definitely
did you just
negative
want to
way.
go into things
I
that were
just want to
happening?
like for me, what I was thinking of is like, I remember when Walker Zimmerman scored against Atlanta, a game that was a loss, but a game that I may or may not have shed a tear watching.
Of course.
Like, and I just started thinking about like, what are those like moments that aren't the big ones that everyone thinks about, that you just remember. So like for me, um, all the van trips
Yeah, for sure.
when it's like 10 of us in a stadium, like that's like the cool stuff that I mean, those are the pictures that are up at my house. Like there's some MLS pictures at my house, but most of the pictures up at my house are from the USL days.
Right.
And that is not because they were better, because they weren't, but there were things about that like preceded this like coming into where we are now. And I think like for me, that's what I think about. And so I also will say that there are times when the club hasn't respected the values that I think were behind the formation of the club, especially in the last year. But like it's still a good thing that it like exists and it thrives. And so I guess for me, like what is taking first game at Geodis out, taking the first MLS game out, like what is the thing that like you think about the most if you go home and or you try to explain like Nashville Soccer Club?
I think one of the things that like I talk about when it comes to like I think the club itself, I love soccer. I love the things surrounding soccer. I love the community that I have built around soccer itself. But like I think the way that especially this club and soccer can just be a vehicle for so many different things. And what I mean by that is stuff like the van trips. Like, would there be any other reason that, 15 of us would get into a van one day, drive up to Cincinnati, spend the
Dude,
night?
you went to South Africa because of the soccer club.
Yeah, I know. Like it gave me like a vehicle just to be able to have that experience and opportunity just because I became friends with one player specifically that was from this random village in South Africa. Like I got to do this amazing trip and this amazing thing because of it. Like it's so fantastic. Like I talk about road trips all the time being like you should go on an away trip. Was there any reason that we had the ability like there's no reason why I would want to go to Salt Lake for 2 days out of nowhere. But no, because Nashville SC is playing, I wanted to go. And honestly, it turned into one of the best away trips I've still have ever had was Salt Lake. Like you don't get these experiences in any way other, like anywhere else. You really don't.
Yeah, I mean it's better because it's smaller.
Yeah.
If you go to a Titans game in Chicago, like I'm sure it's cool and great, but like it's not the same type of community. And not if there's anything wrong with that. It's better in some ways and worse in other ways. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, when I went to the LA Galaxy playoff match, like it sucks to go down there, all that type of stuff. But I remember seeing one other Nashville jersey in the crowd. And it was a girl and the guy that she was with sitting somewhere down in the lower section. We randomly met up on the balcony and just had a 15-20 minute conversation. This was like right before I kind of started to move or get in the process of moving. Now that like I've moved, we've become extreme best friends just because of that one moment that I met her in LA. Like it's just shout out to Margot, by the way. It's crazy how like the positive things that can come even with just a loss happening. I mean, you talked about the first match ever. Like it's still such an amazing day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of my favorite weekends, I mean, one of my favorite days probably as an adult. Like, starting well before I even got to the stadium, because I got to sit down with ESPN at the start of that day for a couple hours, which is like a cool experience that I don't expect to be repeating anytime soon. So
Right.
like it's pretty crazy. And I think that the joy that it brings shouldn't be, forgotten. And that's one of the things, like Nashville Soccer Archive, like now part of Vanderbilt Libraries, which is great and exciting for me. Like that's one of the reasons that I put it there because like when the Metros died, right? Like nobody cared.
Right.
Like there were a few people that went to games. There were people that went to games when they were pro and kind of stopped going to games when they weren't. And like no one really cared. There were two teams that sprouted up kind of because the Metros died, but they weren't totally related, and that was Nashville SC and that was Atlas, which later merged. But like the fact that we've gotten to the point where not only people care, but like we're now seeing an outgrowth of different clubs in the area. We're seeing a serious outgrowth in the women's game, especially like post college or pre-professional, I think is the words they use. Pre-professional teams in the area. I think we're going to have three women's teams on that front going into this summer. So it's like that's the part of it that is so exciting to me. And a lot of that doesn't happen without the movement around Nashville Soccer Club that got the stadium built. And that's part of a national thing too. It's not just in SC. There's obviously the Premier League just came to
Yeah,
Nashville.
that's such a huge deal. We never would have had that.
Yeah, and that probably doesn't happen if there isn't an MLS team here. That probably doesn't happen if Tottenham doesn't play Man City here.
Right.
A game is which is where I first met Gary Smith actually, because he had just been hired. It was prior to the first USL season, and I was working media ops for Tottenham and City for that game. So it's like I don't know. It's so different than it was 10, 12 years ago in this area. And like, I'm not doing that to absolve the team in its current form, but there's just so much negativity. And I'll be honest with you, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with soccer on an emotional standpoint. And it's just like exhausting to me. And I'm just like, man, like things suck, but they don't suck that much. Like,
Right.
we're mad about soccer stuff that didn't exist 10 years ago.
For sure.
And that's the part where I'm just like, maybe we can tone it down just a little bit. Like for me personally, like
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
just
Like
I'm
and
just
I
so happy that we have something to be mad about though.
Yeah, absolutely. Like again, like expectations are not like like again, like the three of us, and Valair too, would be the ones that are like absolutely being like, look, this person needs to go or something needs to definitely change for sure. And
More
like,
so you and Valaire than me, but yes, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, like if there's something that needs to change, like it needs to change, but it doesn't necessarily take away from the fact of like what this team does to the community, what the community does to the entire city itself. It's something that you're right, Clay. Like when we're all going through, and there's a lot of weird stuff kind of going down in the world right now.
Yeah.
Everywhere where I do wish National Soccer Club was better, but let me tell you, even being away from everybody, like it's a tough part, like a spot that like I'm sitting here just waiting for July because I
Yeah.
want you guys to be here. Like it really does mean so much, even when the team is not performing.
Yeah. And like I don't know. I lost my train of thought there. I apologize. But like it was to me, this is gonna be a weird callback, but one of the things that most infuriated me a few years ago was that when we were dealing with our stuff, with the communications office at Nashville SC, and things are a lot better now. Just in the interest of when we were dealing with it, I was accused of being anti-club or against the team, and for me, which one, I'm usually a pocket full of sunshine around NSC anyway, if this segment doesn't exemplify that. But like, uh, we're going to be around longer than anybody associated with this club. We're going to be around longer than Gary Smith. We're going to be around longer than probably some of the owners. We're going to be around longer than anybody that's in the front office. And like, you can both be critical of the club and love it, at the same time.
Yes.
So like, I can both be mad that I was priced out of getting tickets to one of the biggest games in the club's history and still also support the club and go to matches.
Yep.
These aren't these there's a clash between the two, but they can exist independently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's what I'd like to wrap home. I can both have expectations, but also still be there every week.
Yeah.
And I can have issues with whatever it is on the field, off the field, whatever it is. But like, I would still take having issues over anything 10 years ago. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
no disrespect to NPSL, but like, it's a 3 month season. It's a 2 month season, really.
Yeah.
And like, this is just so much better, even at its worst, than that is at its best.
Yeah, and there's so much like feelings I have. Like, of course I miss NPSL, of course I miss USL, but like I miss those specific times just because we got to witness the growth of what this could actually be. Like whenever I do any sort of interview, I talk about, yeah, the first roadies meeting that I went to, there was 3 people there. Like that was it. And now if there's any sort of roadies get together, it's 100 plus. And like I don't want to go back to just it being 3 people. I like the fact that that was one of the things I knew with this growth of this club was the stupid magnets on the cars. I used to know every single person that had a Nashville SC magnet on a car. That is
Oh
not the
yeah.
case anymore. That I see a Nashville SC magnet, I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to drive right by you.
I don't feel compelled to talk to anybody wearing a Nashville SC shirt in public. You know, I work at a college campus. And when I first started working here again, this is my second go around at Middle, but when I worked on a college campus at Middle, in the early days, 2017, 2018, 2019, if they're wearing an NSC shirt, I would go all the way across the quad just to say hello to them because chances are we know the same people.
For sure.
Now, like I see it all the time and I don't even like nod at them. Like it's they're everywhere. And that's cool. You lose a little bit of the community, but it is cool. Like everyone loves this thing that you've loved for a long time. And I think Valer and I have talked about that a few times where it's like we we are no bigger fan than anybody else. Like
Right.
we've been a fan for longer, but that doesn't necessarily make us a bigger fan, right? Like everyone has their own level of being a fan. So if they became a fan last year and they support the team, they're just as much of a fan as me or Steven is. It's all about support and things like that. And so, but yeah, it is like wild to now not know most people at a game.
And I have one more callback story that I remember kind of it changed me a lot last year. And like it deals with Gary Smith, so it's really funny. It was the God, what team did hate International when we played International and USL at the Vanderbilt Soccer Stadium?
Yeah,
During that match, there was a kid that came over, younger kid that came over to like where the supporter section was
that
singing
was the Bria game.
the Bria game. Yeah, Mississippi
Yeah,
Bria, where he came
yeah.
over.
International was the week before. It was the Bria game.
A kid came over and just started a chant, being like, "All you Nashville, like just this little kid," and it ended up being Gary Smith's son. And we were all about it. Like his daughter came over too. Like it was so great to see. Like we're like, heck yeah, like get involved. This is fantastic. And this chant has stayed, but we don't do it as much, but it has stayed through the entire time. I remember I was hanging out with Lebo. I was sitting down last year during one of the Open Cup games. I ended up sitting down with Lebo because Lebo was in town, and I see a kid in front of me, and I'm like, wait, like he's talking in a British accent. Why do I recognize this kid? Like he's an adult now. He's like 17 or 18 now, and he's an adult. This little kid that we saw in USL learning chants, like, is now a grown adult. And he was just like, I absolutely remember that moment. I absolutely remember starting that chant. Oh my gosh, you still do it. That's amazing. Like, you don't necessarily understand the way that some people have grown through this. And it's just fun to see, like, and continue to see, even when stuff's bad. It really is fun.
Yeah. So anyway,
That was good, Clay. I really appreciated that. I really
20
like
minutes of
doing.
nostalgia. Some of you are really going to care for it. Some of you are going to skip this segment. Either way, whatever.
Yeah, we had fun
Let us
talking
know.
about
Let
it.
us know some of your favorite NSC moments.
Let's bring back the
Anything we
positive
can.
vibes. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get the vibes up and then get a win against Miami, which we'll talk about in the next segment. You're listening to Pharmaceutical Soccer.
And we are back on Pharmaceutical Soccer right here, of course, at Pharma Soccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And of course, you can check us out on our Patreon. Please, 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 we want Valer back. We miss him so much. So please subscribe to our Patreon so Valer can come back. We do give shout outs. We do leave if you leave us a 5-star review on podcast or Spotify or whatever, we'll make sure to give you a shout out if we do see it, which Valer normally does. So please make sure that you do subscribe to the Patreon as well, so Valer can see it and he can come back. We got a few things to talk about. I definitely want to talk about scores over the weekend because I do think there's a few interesting ones. A small story that it happened literally last week, and there's still not a ton of detail about it, but I just think it's something that we just need to make sure that everybody has an understanding and happening. From a Huntsville City perspective, Jack Collison, I believe, the head coach for Huntsville City, has left the club. There hasn't been any details about if it was his choice or if it was the club's choice. It's just hey, this is something that happened. We don't have any details on it yet. Just wanted to make sure that everybody didn't know. When we do get more details about it, we'll definitely make sure to share.
Yes, there has been a lot of changeover in Huntsville over the years. Some of it's not super surprising. Assistant coaches have left. One of them left to go be a manager of another club, albeit interim, but he left to go be a manager of his previous club. That was Nicky Law, who went to the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
It
So
was
like,
effectively not a coach there after that time as the interim.
yeah, yeah, but it's just like there are understandable exits. Obviously, Liam Doyle was kind of in charge of the soccer side of things, and he got promoted. So there's some changes going on down there. We don't really know. I wouldn't expect it to be related to wins and losses, as wins and losses aren't paramount to the success of a lower division team that is feeding your, senior side. Like its development, this team is noticeably younger than a year ago. It's teenagers and guys in their early 20s for the most part. And so whether they win or lose is kind of second to whether they get better. Which winning and losing is part of that. Like shouldn't lose sight of that, but it's not the most important thing. I will say it does appear that the Nashville SC coaching staff was at the Huntsville game over the weekend against Crown Legacy. Gary Smith was there. I believe I saw Matt Pickens there on another photo. Um, but yeah, so they obviously taking a week off to go watch the developmental kids. So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
There's things out there about Gary not playing the young guys, and so maybe that's a sign that they're going to start looking around a little bit. I don't know. I wouldn't read into it too much, but either way, the senior staff was there to watch the Huntsville game over the weekend.
Yeah, which is fantastic, especially when you do have that break. You do want to see, we do have two academy players that Gary Smith has the ability to work with at the current moment when it comes to yeah. So it's good to see them down there. I'm mad. God, I never got to go to Huntsville, unfortunately, for one of those matches, which I wish I would have had the ability to. But who knows? Maybe I will in the next couple weeks or so when I come back to Nashville for a little bit. So that'll be fun. Look, it was a busy, even though that Nashville didn't have any matches, it was still a busy soccer weekend in MLS for sure, with a lot of kind of interesting storylines. I think the Kansas City security team is uh, one headline that is absolutely hilarious to me. Of course, Miami getting the win in KC in front of 72,000 people. But my God, security was terrible at keeping fans not trying to take pictures with Messi, to say the least. God, they had
Messi
so many
brings a lot of
instances.
that. Messi brings a lot of that on himself because if it's a kid, he will stop and take a photo, and it's understandable. but it doesn't help keep people from doing it.
No, it does not. It really does not. I appreciate the niceness of a player like that who's just like, hey, if you're going to be thrown in jail or something like that, I guess I'll get a picture with you. But it does lean into that a little bit. What other scores happened? DC United blew a 2-1 lead at home to then lose 3-2, so that's fun. Um, what else happened? I mean, New England.
St. Louis beat Austin, so Austin's looking flukier by the day. A very funny draw with Atlanta and Philly. Uh,
Yeah,
there,
like I don't I still feel bad about Nashville getting beat by Philly at that one moment, but it's still helpful to see it when another team does the exact same thing, especially when they were in a terrific position. Also, it is very good to see Daniel Rios get a goal for Atlanta. His first start for Atlanta does get a goal, which is super cool to see. Obviously, he's been through it in his career.
the other big one is San Jose got beat 3-0 by Colorado at home. So they've had quite a run. After beating Seattle 3-2 on March 23rd, they've now lost to Houston, Austin, and Colorado, uh, and given up whew, 9 goals in those 3 games. So so anyway, after the Inter Miami game, Nashville plays San Jose at home, and there might be a lot riding on that game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the two matches. I think Miami is going to be tough, obviously, and we can just kind of get into Miami right now. Miami did get the win 3-2 against, Sporting KC, and then their last match, Messi came on at halftime uh and completely changed the game and got a win there. So it does look like Miami is kind of getting back to the form that, I mean, they still seem vulnerable at the back. Definitely seem vulnerable at the back, but Nashville is also vulnerable at the back at the current moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're still old. I still think that Nashville, the last game notwithstanding, Nashville is a tough matchup for Miami. Just generally speaking, I think there's a reason why Nashville typically gives Miami as good a go as anybody has given Miami over the years. And they are vulnerable. They're old. Uh, just a reminder, they're old. Uh, and
Hey guys, just a reminder, they're old. Just wanted to
they're
make sure you
old.
knew that. You think
And
Nashville's old? Miami's older.
and I am excited to see Jacob Schaffelberg play against Miami again, uh, and maybe use a little bit of that speed. I think that
Which, by the way, shout out to you, Clay, over the weekend for your video that you put on the pharmaceutical soccer. That was great.
yeah. So I don't know. I think that I'm not sure that I expect Nashville to win it into Miami the way that Miami's playing at the moment, but I do think they're going to give them a game. I feel confident they're going to give them a game.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that you can expect from Nashville to be able to do. I mean, I was down there last year when I saw Messi try to get in Jack Mayer's face, and Jack Mayer absolutely putting on a defensive clinic against how to stop Messi and and company. Obviously, it's a little bit different now that they also have Luis Suarez and Jordi, but still, it's still possible in a way for Nashville to be able to kind of put up a fight. It's still a Gary Smith team, and it's going to be interesting to see. I am nervous just by the way that Miami is playing lately. Um, but let's just talk about our predictions with it. Why don't you plug some stuff up, Clay, and then give your prediction?
Yeah, check out National Soccer Archive. Ask me if you have any questions. If you have anything you'd like to donate to the archive, please reach out to me at Clay Lessel on either Instagram or Twitter. Like I said, the archive is now part of Vanderbilt's libraries. We will have more on that front as time goes on. And as far as what I expect in the game, I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw because that is the calling card for Nashville. And Jacob Schaffelberg is going to score an early goal. Nashville will find itself down 2-1 late, and they're going to get a header from somebody. Maybe Teal Bunbury, a header from Teal Bunbury late to make it 2-2. And we're going to come into that San Jose game the following week with a little bit of positive momentum, even if it is a draw.
Uh,
Fingers crossed. I'm trying to will that into existence.
Absolutely. At PH Steven HD on all of my socials as well. Be sure to check out On Air with Valaire. Again, if you want great coffee recommendations and fun stuff, On Air with Valaire, you can learn from Sean Davis about his favorite spots in the city. So please make sure you check out On Air with Valaire and all of Valaire's fun stuff, including Kicking It 615, who is currently in the middle of their season and will always need the help that you can get. Yeah, so check that out as well. For my prediction, just because I also want to will something into existence, it's going to be a 3-0 loss for Nashville. Unfortunately, we're not going to get any goals, and Messi is going to score a hat trick on us. And so it's going to be extremely unfortunate. And I'm
20 minutes of positivity followed by 3-0 loss.
well, I will get into that next episode about why I gave that prediction specifically. Um, Yes, I will do that next episode. Again, thank you all so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate it, especially in these weird kind of bye weeks where we don't have a ton of soccer to talk about. But I had a lot of fun talking about the nostalgia and the things that like getting a little bit more positive. I'm feeling a lot better about soccer just after having this conversation with Clay. So thank you again so much for listening. We'll be back next week with Valaire, hopefully, if we had some more Patreon subscribers. To talk about that Miami result and all of Nashville's upcoming matches for sure. So thank you again so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.